Hi, y'all. I'm Allison. Today is the big day, and we're going to reach the conclusion of the Moonstone. Find out what happened to it, who stole it, where it is, if Rosanna's alive. All of our questions should be answered. I hope. So I am excited to get to the final conclusion, wrap up our start and stop Betty read of this book by Wilkie Collins. And I want to thank everybody for sticking with me. I know I've been behind on getting videos up. You know, our every other day schedule was kind of shot out the window, but this one is taking a little bit longer to read than normal, and I've had a lot going on. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for sticking with me, and I can't wait to find out how this book is going to come to a close. So we will know by the end of this video. And if you are reading ahead of me, you already know. So we'll see if my theories are going to hold up. I know Franklin did it, and he was under opium when he did, and I think Rosanna came in and she hid it somewhere. But that's because I'm not convinced she's gone yet. Let me see, was there anything else? I think that was it. So I'm going to get comfy, dive back into this. If you have not already reached the conclusion and you're going to read along with me, then just pause your screen whenever you are directed to do so by the little chapter title pages. I can't believe I almost forgot to give y'all an update on my own Moonstone Curse, because you know, so many weird things have been happening while we've been reading this book, and apparently it's not done with me, because when I was editing part 4, which is another reason that video went up late, all of a sudden I'm sitting here digging through that video, trying to get it condensed down for y'all, and I hear, so I'm like, what in the world? And after a while, I decided I should probably investigate, right? Go over there and move my rocking chair, and there's Finley sitting on the floor staring at the bookcase, and I hear the sound again. My cat, Joey, crawled up the bookcases when I wasn't looking, and was, I guess, walking along up there. Now, in that corner, typical, but in that corner over there where the two bookcases meet, there is a square. The cat fell down there. So she was trapped in the corner with no way out, and she's trying to scratch her way up. I was just like, are you kidding me? So I had to move the furniture, take all of the books off the bookcase, get my son. We had to pull the bookcase out to rescue the cat. I was like, are you really? So, yeah, the Moonstone is just jacking with my life. I don't know what it is about this book, but I'm about to go finish it. So I'm going to try sitting in the chair. Oh, I thought that was the cat for a second. After I pick up the plant. And see about finishing this book. By the way, my husband is going to get me something to put up there, so it won't happen again. But I've always had a corner over there. We've been in this house for 19 years. First time that happened. Yeah. Because, you know, it's not chaotic enough for me. Okay, let's go read. Hopefully I will end my own Moonstone Curse. So when we last put down the book, Ezra and Mr. Franklin were talking about doing that experiment to see if Franklin's in the same state of mind as he was the night the Moonstone went missing, if maybe they can determine what happened. So, yeah, I think they're going to try to recreate it. I think they're still discussing that, if I remember right, which, I don't know. Let's just dive right into it and find out. Okay, so Ezra is telling Mr. Franklin that Ezra himself is currently under 10 times a larger dose of opium, laudanum, and then Franklin was the night that the Moonstone went missing. And while they're talking about that, he references a book, and we have a footnote for it. It's Confessions of an English Opium Eater. So let me see what that has to say. It looks like Jack is interested to know too. Tomas de Quincey published this as a Tomas de Quincey published this as a memoir in 1821 and revised in 1856. It was notorious for its graphic account of his addiction to opium. So Ezra has a really good point, and something I did ponder a couple of times, but I don't think I ever mentioned it, and that's everybody's been under the assumption that the Moonstone was moved to London. There's no reason why it couldn't be at Lady Julia's still, though, because we haven't had any confirmation of it. In fact, Lurker himself was like, what do you mean the Moonstone? We don't know what valuable item was being hogged. So it's very possible that it is somewhere else. And I'm curious to see how their little experiment goes with the laudanum. Just so you know, I flipped through to look. There are no chapters for Ezra's section. It's just one big chapter in and of itself. So let's see what he's got to say. Mr. Franklin apparently told Betteredge what he's going to be doing, along with some others, as far as his experiment with the laudanum. And Betteredge thinks it's one of his most foolish ideas to begin with. So I guess they do know the danger already of that drug. I was glad to see that Ezra wrote to Rachel asking for permission for them to conduct their little experiment at Rachel's house now. And he also let her know what happened to Mr. Franklin that night about Candy putting the drug in his drink and how Mr. Franklin wasn't in his right mind when the Moonstone was stolen. So it looks like Rachel has forgiven him, which is a good thing because he didn't deserve to be in trouble for that, I don't think. It looks like Ezra is skipping his own doses of the laudanum so he can help Franklin with his experiment. So it'd be cool to see if Ezra can actually shake his own addiction in the course of doing this. I don't know how long it takes to get off of opium. I don't know if 2 weeks would be enough to detox him. But that would be a very good outcome. Because he seems like a sad soul. I don't think we're going to get much comedic relief during this section of the book. Fortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be as easy for Ezra to get off the laudanum because he's actually taking it for some medical issues that he has of his own. Which would, I bet a lot of this mirrors Wilkie Collins' own experiences with laudanum and opium, because that's exactly what happened to him. Thanks to his long-term illness, he ended up with an opium addiction. So I would assume a lot of this is first-hand knowledge from him, which is sad. Oh, maybe I'll be wrong about the comedy, because Ezra says that even in his shattered condition, the visit proved to be a most amusing one, thanks entirely to the presence on the scene of Gabriel Betteredge. So maybe Gabriel will be back to his humorous self this time, because last time I would assume, due to Lady Julia passing away, we didn't get that humor from Gabriel. Feels weird to call him Gabriel. From Betteredge. So Betteredge is not happy with the experiment. He doesn't think Franklin should be doing it. And we have a footnote while Betteredge is voicing his dissent with this decision. He says, if an order comes to me, which is own brother to an order come from Bedlam, it don't matter. So Bedlam is abbreviation of the name of the hospital of St. Mary of Bethlehem, a notorious insane asylum, which I'm sure everybody recognized, but just in case. So he's sitting there with his notepad and pencil, the latter not pointed so well as I could wish, but when Christians take leave of their senses, who is to expect that pencils will keep their points? I just love Betteredge. And Betteredge is going to write down everything he's supposed to do. And he's going to follow it to the letter because he wants no part of it. And this is his way of disagreeing. They're just running through all of the rooms, asking if this needs to be put back and pointing out the exceptions on why an area of the house can't be exactly like it was last year. Anyway, he gets down to Mr. Franklin's bedroom. He says, if that is to be put back to what it was before, I want to know who is responsible for keeping it in a perpetual state of litter, no matter how often it may be set right. His trousers here, his towels there, and his French novels everywhere. I say, who is responsible for untidying the tidiness of Mr. Franklin's room, him or me? Can you imagine sitting there and hearing that or being part of that discussion? I think I would lose it. I'd be cracking up. And by the way, the result of that question was Mr. Blake declared, and of course this is Franklin, that he would assume the whole responsibility with the greatest pleasure. Betteredge didn't hold back. He said, speaking as a servant, I am deeply indebted to you. Speaking as a man, I consider you to be a person whose head is full of maggots. He is not happy at all with Ezra, but he is going to comply because as far as he views it, he's got no choice. I'd say he's a little miffed. Okay, so we've also had a letter from Sergeant Cuff, who will be returning from Ireland, taking a little break from his retirement to discuss the Moonstone. He's going to be present at the experiment. And we have another footnote. We've got Betteredge, who is attired for the occasion in fisherman's red cap and an apron of green baize. And baize is a heavy cotton or woolen material, roughly napped to imitate felt. That's what he was wearing when he met with Ezra and Mr. Flankon in the outer hall. I think the house is now gotten ready and they're going to maybe start the experiment. I'm not sure. No, they're not getting ready to start, but Betteredge just have out his pencil and notepad again to start taking notes of everything said to him. Because if it's not told directly, he's not going to do it. Is that malicious compliance? Is that what that's called? Oh, Betteredge. I love him. He's very offended that Ezra has not read Robinson Crusoe since he was a child. Uh-oh. Franklin just told Ezra that he has committed the gravest error because he did not humor Betteredge's prophetic discovery in Robinson Crusoe. So from now on, he might as well be dead to Betteredge because he is not going to waste another word on him. So apparently it's been 6 days since they started setting up for this experiment, and Ezra is going to be taking his full dose of opium. 500 drops, which I assume is an insane amount. At least that's my guess. So I wonder how much of this experiment is going to be sabotaged. We will see. Okay, so we finally reached the point where they're going to do the experiment. They're having their dinner, recreating that day as much as possible. And Ezra is determining how much laudanum to put in his drink. So the notes told Ezra that Mr. Candy administered 25 minims, which is a small dose, but Ezra is going to give him more. He's going to give him 40 minims. And he's thinking that more than likely Candy actually put extra in there, that he wasn't paying attention when he actually dosed it. And he's also thinking that since Franklin's done it before and he knows he's going to be drugged this time, that it would take a larger dose to recreate the effect that it had the first time. So that makes me I'm nervous for this to happen. I don't know that I trust Ezra's decisions on this, especially because he's using opium again. How clearly is he thinking? I'm on the edge. I feel like everything's about to go wrong because this is the Moonstone. I was going to say the Moonstone Curse, but I've put the word curse in the title on my own. So it's not, it's just the Moonstone. So we will see. That was at 8:30. We're now 10 o'clock at night. So Mr. Bruff has arrived. He is going to be one of the witnesses for this. And Betteredge is showing him to his room. And we have another footnote. By the way, both men are not at all happy with this experiment that's about to take place. But Betteredge gave Ezra one look at parting, which said, as if in so many words, "You have caught a Tartar." And that is proverbially fierce Turkic and Mongolian people who invaded Europe in the Middle Ages. And he was referring to Mr. Bruff. Okay, it seems like Miss Pettigrew is going to be a little ridiculous in herself. She is Rachel's new guardian. And she's talking to Jennings. She said she would like to ask a favor about the experiment for the night, stating that she used to attend scientific experiments when she was a girl at school, and they invariably ended in an explosion. So if Mr. Jennings will be so very kind, she would like to be warned of the explosion this time. So she wants the view to getting it over if possible before she goes to bed. And I don't know why that just cracked me up. I like how they're just going to tell Mrs. Meridew, I think I got her name wrong earlier, but anyway, they're just going to tell her that the explosion will happen at 9 a.m. the following morning, so she can go to bed and not worry about it. That was cute. Okay, they're about to do the experiment. I am curious to see if it's going to work, if it'll lead Mr. Franklin to repeat his steps that night, and maybe he'll lead them directly to where the Moonstone is. Although it seems a little unreasonable that they couldn't just search the room. He said, I think on a couple of occasions, Ezra has stated that the Moonstone would be hidden in Mr. Franklin's room. So why not just go search the room? But I guess that wouldn't give us all the drama of recreating everything. But I don't know. Might be overly complicated. And wouldn't it have turned up already? But we'll just suspend belief and continue on. And find out what did happen. Okay, so Franklin has taken his laudanum and they're waiting for it to take effect, I guess. And even Betteredge is starting to get more involved in the experiment and forgetting his malicious compliance because he's kind of like, okay, when's it going to work? So they're all intrigued to find out what's going to happen. As am I. I'm nervous for him. I don't know. It looks like it's going to work because Mr. Franklin seems to be getting out of bed saying he wished he had never taken it out of the bank. It was safe in the bank. So he is definitely concerned about the Moonstone again. So it was a flop. We didn't get the outcome that we want. I wonder if Ezra gave him too much because he fell asleep before he took the diamond anywhere, which I was kind of expecting because we do have a lot of book left, and if we knew what happened with the Moonstone already, what would be left to reveal? Especially because we also know that Rachel's going to forgive him. So I'm not too surprised, but a little disappointed. Okay, so Ezra is saying himself that he might have administered too large of a dose. So they have apologized to Ezra for not being more supportive of the experiment because they all agree now that Mr. Franklin wasn't basically of a sound mind whenever he went in and took the diamond. That he did it while he was drugged, and therefore I think as far as they're concerned, he's innocent of any wrongdoing. And Betteredge goes back to quoting Robinson Crusoe, saying, when you go back and read it again, as I strongly recommend you do, that, he He has no problem admitting when he was wrong. And Betteredge is doing the same. I just love it. Well, we still don't know where the diamond is. We know that Franklin, it's been proven. Then he went in there under the influence of the opium and took the diamond out. We don't know where it is. And Mr. Bruff brought up that he still has people watching. Is it a bank? Yeah, the bank where Mr. Luker may have secured the diamond, and that pledge is about to be redeemed. So they are still going to be watching that avenue. I think Lurker does have it, and they're going to find out when it's redeemed. And the big mystery is, how did it pass hands? I'm still thinking Rosanna's involved in that. I feel bad for Ezra. Between his pain and opium and his loneliness. Poor guy. On a happier note, though, it looks like Franklin and Miss Rachel have reconciled, and they are a happy couple once again. Well, it is sweet that they're sad, Rachel and Mr. Franklin, about leaving Ezra, and that he wouldn't join them. And they view him as a dearest and best friend now. So maybe things will get better for Ezra. Maybe he'll have some friends in his future after all. We've got Mr. Bruff and Mr. Franklin at the bank, and there is a new footnote, but they just saw Lurker come out. He's got 2 police escorts. They think that the diamond is being moved, and they're trying to keep an eye on Lurker, suspecting that he's about to pass it off to somebody. And apparently it was a very busy day at the bank because there was a crowd. But they saw Mr. Lurker's hand move when he passed a short, stout man, respectfully dressed in a suit of gray. The man started a little and looked after him. And then Lurker just moved on through the crowd. Franklin and Bruff lost sight of Lurker, and I think the guy in the gray got away, and they're like, where did everybody go? And the little boy who was their informant, keeping an eye out, he had disappeared in the crowd as well. Anyway, there's the scene, and they said the man in the gray suit got into an omnibus, and that is a large conveyance for many passengers. There's a long way around to tell you, it's a big bus. So the second guy thought he saw Mr. Lurker pass something to an elderly gentleman in a light-colored paletot. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it's an outer garment, coat or cloak. And it turns out he was just an ironmonger in Eastcheap. So they struck out again. One more chance is the little boy, Gooseberry. So they're going to bed, still not knowing. I'm not surprised because Collins really likes to draw it out. I'm not saying I'm not enjoying it, but I was like, okay, enough false leads. Let's have something. Okay, I was surprised by that. He thought Gooseberry was at the door the next morning, but it's Sergeant Cuff. He is back. So maybe we'll finally get some answers. So I had to take a short little break because the battery on my phone was dying. And I've been trying to figure it out. Did it leave Lady Julia's house? And if it did, who actually took it? And I've wondered briefly, was it Lady Julia? She didn't want her daughter to have it by any means. And I don't know if anybody else in the household who had a vested interest. I kind of considered Rosanna for a minute because her and Lucy were planning to move to London and start a new life. And to do that, they would need money, right? Could the Moonstone have been their way to finance it? Although I find that kind of hard to believe. I don't think that doesn't seem right. Although Rosanna did have a past of being a thief. I don't know. I can't come up with any plausible theories. So I'm just going to keep reading. See what's going to be revealed. Oh, that's right. The phone cut off right when I had reached a rather pivotal moment. And that Cuff just gave Mr. Franklin an envelope. It's marked private. Cuff is saying he suspected the wrong person last year, and he may be suspecting the wrong person now. And Franklin is to wait to open the envelope until he has got at the truth. And then compare the name of the guilty person with the name that he has written in the sealed letter. Doesn't mean, do we have to be that dramatic? Can't he just say? Now, Sergeant Cuff has retired, and he's not coming out of retirement. He's not going to accept payment for any help in solving this case, but he does kind of have an interest in it, and he is there only in grateful remembrance of Lady Julia. So he is being dramatic. But it looks like Franklin's gonna abide by his wishes, and he put the letter into his pocket. I would assume Cuff's gonna have it right, because he's gonna be the all-knowing detective. He's gonna solve it. But why can't he just tell us? I want to know. Okay, so Cuff is saying that Gooseberry was following the right person, and that was a sailor who was a tall man with a big black beard. And Franklin actually remembered that guy, saying that he and Mr. Bruff had thought he was a spy employed by the Indians, which Cuff didn't credit much. That's apparently not who he is, but he is someone of importance, or someone of note. Okay, so apparently we've got Gooseberry following the sailor, who is being followed by a mechanic. A guy who's dressed like a mechanic seems to keep appearing across the street from where the sailor is, who tried to book passage on a steamboat, but they weren't going to let anybody board till the next morning. The sailor went around, got something to eat, and now he's finding somewhere to spend the evening. And the mechanic is going to these same places, staying kind of across the street or the other end of the restaurant where he was eating. And the mechanic had been seen talking to somebody inside a cab who fit the description, who had a dark face with the face of an Indian. So it looks like our Brahmin are back, the 3 Indians, and they may potentially have hired the mechanic to follow the sailor. And Gooseberry's following everybody and keeping note of it. This was all the night before. Gooseberry shows up at Franklin's house the next morning because Franklin wasn't home in time to receive all of this information. So now they're going to be playing catch up, and I think they're about to race down to the wharf to see if they can catch the steamboat before it leaves. At least that's my assumption. And I'm making sure to give the highlights because I saw where Whitney Tibersden is enjoying and knowing what's going on because she has DNF'd the book, but is still very interested to find out. So I'm trying to hit the high points. So we'll see how I'm doing. There's a lot. It feels like there's a lot happening and nothing's happening all at once. It's like, I don't know. When I say nothing, it means nothing as far as progression of solving the mystery. I feel like we're just being led down a whole bunch of winding paths on a little wild goose chase, waiting for Cuff to give the big reveal. I will say this. I don't think I've ever had a mystery like this, and I'm enjoying that because we know what was stolen. We know who took it. We probably know where it landed here, and we don't know where it's going. So it's like we've got big pieces of the puzzle already, and we've had most of those pieces for the majority of the book, but there's like the missing links, and I don't think I've had a mystery like that. So I do like that aspect of it, but at the same time I found it frustrating because it's like, no, go in order. I wonder, is anybody else experiencing that? Have you noticed that difference? Because it's more, how did it go from point A to point C? I want to know B. Okay, so they have all gone to the inn where the sailor was rented his room for the night. Apparently, the sailor had left a wake-up call for 7 a.m. They've been trying to wake him up since then, returning to the room every hour, banging on the door, no answer, nothing. And we have a footnote because the potboy has gone to fetch a carpenter, and a potboy is a waiter at a tavern. So they're going to have to break into this room. And the mechanic previous night had gone upstairs and staked out this room because it was announced which room number the sailor would be in. And Cuff was saying that he probably did that so the Indians would know what the environment, what the layout of the room was like, because they suspect that the Moonstone was there so they could break in and take the Moonstone during the night. So apparently something happened during the night, and now we've got to wait for the door to be unlocked to find out exactly what. So the room is a garret. There's a trapdoor in the ceiling leading out onto the roof. So the tavern keeper is concerned that the guy just kind of skipped on his bill because he was supposed to pay in the morning when he left. I have a feeling I know what they're going to find because Cuff made Gooseberry wait downstairs instead of following them into the room. Yep, he's got a white pillow over his face. Yeah, he's dead. So there was a box with jeweler's cotton inside of it. Nothing else other than a torn sheet of white paper with a seal, partially destroyed, and an inscription saying that it was deposited with blah, blah, blah by Lurker, containing a valuable of great price. Box is empty. So they're saying, yep, the Moonstone was in there and it's no longer there. I guess apparently the sailor's wearing a wig and he's going to pull it off. He's got on makeup and a beard and all of that's being removed by Sergeant Cuff. He's washing him up. Oh, okay, wait. Cuff just told... Okay, wait. Sergeant suddenly burst his way through the people about him and came with horror in his face straight to the place where Franklin was standing. Come back to the bed, sir. Open the sealed letter first. The letter I gave you this morning. Read the name, Mr. Blake. Godfrey Ablewhite. Now come with me and look at the man on the bed. The man on the bed was Godfrey Ablewhite. Okay, I did not suspect that when I was running through that. I completely forgot about Ablewhite. Okay. So how did he get it? So Lurker was giving it to Ablewhite, Godfrey. So that means Godfrey was the one. I was like, well, how did Lurker get it? Duh. So Godfrey was the one who pawned it to begin with Lurker. So how did he get it? Did Rosanna give it to him? Look at me. I keep trying to bring Rosanna into this. Dang. Although we knew he needed money. Okay, so we're going to get Cuff's report concerning the late Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Franklin, Godfrey, and Rachel, they're all first cousins. I completely forgot that. So it's been determined that Godfrey was smothered with a pillow from his bed. The persons guilty of murdering him are the 3 Indians, and that the object contemplated and achieved by the crime was to obtain possession of the diamond called the Moonstone. And it's all being laid out in detail on how that happened. And Mr. Lurker personally identified the box, the seal, and the inscription, and declared the box did actually contain the diamond called the Moonstone, and admitted having given the box, thus sealed up, to Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite, who was concealed under a disguise. They're thinking that the man dressed like the mechanic was one of the 3 Hindu conspirators, one of the 3 Indians to begin with. And the 3 men answering the description of the 3 Indians were seen to leave London by the steamer bound for Rotterdam. Oh, so now it looks like we're going to get Cuff's report on Godfrey's proceedings before, during, after the time when he and Franklin met at Lady Julia's house. Rosanna would give... No. Miss Clack. I've been wondering... Well, no, Clack wouldn't. Darn it, I'm still trying to get that missing piece of the puzzle. Because I've been wondering what Mrs. Clack's portion has to do with anything. Because that just felt like one huge filler. But Godfrey was like a hero to her. She was clearly a hero worshipping him. So, yeah, she's got to tie into this somehow, right? Because otherwise, what was the point of her portion of the book? But she wasn't at Rachel's house, so she couldn't be the link between Franklin and Godfrey on getting the yellow diamond. I don't know. I guess I should read to find out. I got lost reading the part about Godfrey and the money. So Godfrey has a public view, the spectacle of a gentleman with considerable reputation as a speaker at charitable meetings and endowed with administrative abilities. With, that he used this for the benevolent societies with all of the women that he was running or spearheading. And that's what the public knew of him. But he also had a secret side. He's a man of pleasure with a villa in the suburbs, which was not taken in his own name, and with a lady in the villa who was not taken in his own name either. And apparently the villa was finely furnished, rarest of flowers, blah, blah, blah. The excavation of the lady resulted in the discovery of jewels that are worthy to take rank with the flowers. So, carriages, horses, all of that. Living the good life. And he's saying that's not uncommon, but what's not common is that all these fine things were not only ordered, but paid for. So there was no debt whatsoever owing on any of that. The villa, it had been bought out and out and settled on the lady. So, and thanks to Godfrey's death, an inquiry was made into the state of his affairs, which is the only way they discovered that essentially he was stealing from this trust for this young man who was about to come into his inheritance or have control of his own trust. But Godfrey had stolen all of that funds, and that's how he paid for his villa and the lady and everything. And now when the kid comes of age, there's no money to be had, which is why Godfrey was so worried about money. That's why he tried to marry Rachel, and once he found out that he wouldn't be able to sell the house and the land, thanks to Lady Julia's will, that's why he was willing to call off the engagement, because he realized there was no money to be had. But if he knew about the Moonstone, then he could break it down and his problems would be solved. Yeah, because he had gone to his dad trying to get a loan, because he's trying to cover his tracks and make sure that he can fulfill the trust obligations so he's not caught beforehand. Yeah, so Godfrey had to find 300 pounds by the 24th of the month, which was right around the time of Rachel's birthday, and 20,000 pounds to find in February of 1850. And if he failed to raise both of those, he was a ruined man. And it looks like when Mr. Candy played his practical joke with a dose of laudanum, he trusted the administration of that prepared and vial to Godfrey. He himself confessed the share he had in the matter. So Godfrey knew that Franklin was going to be drugged. So is he watching Franklin, and he saw Franklin take the Moonstone, and there we go. Voila, there's our part B. Because if he saw that and he saw Franklin come out of Rachel's sitting room with the diamond, he could have just waited for Franklin to crawl back into bed, pass out, and then she takes the Moonstone. Voila, done. God, this video is going to be so long. I'm sorry, y'all. Man, this is a lot to unpack all at once. I still wonder if Miss Clack is going to come back into play somewhere. So, okay, now I guess we're going to find out something about Mr. Lurker. Oh, we're going to find out how Lurker ended up with the diamond. That's what it is. So Godfrey only intended to make Franklin the victim of a practical joke whenever he put the laudanum in his drink. But since they had adjoining rooms, and I guess there was like a little doorway or something, a small door. Anyway, he was able to hear Franklin and they're muttering to himself about the diamond and that the Indians may be hidden in the house. Oh, and he actually followed Franklin out of fear of an accident befalling him, because it occurred to him that the laudanum may have more of an effect than was expected. And so he followed to make sure that an accident didn't happen. So he did see him taking the diamond. And he saw that Rachel witnessed Franklin removing the diamond. Oh, there's a door of communication between the rooms. That's what it is. And Franklin called to Godfrey through that little door. So Franklin told Godfrey to take the diamond to his father's bank. It's safe there. It's not safe here. Because he said, I can't take it back to the bank. My head's like lead and I can't feel my feet under me. And then he fell asleep. And then in the next morning, when Franklin didn't say anything about giving Godfrey the diamond, nothing was said about it. And Rachel was pretending like nothing happened because she was trying to protect Franklin. Then Godfrey's like, here's all the answers to my problems. So he put it into his pocket. So much simpler than I had so many elaborate. I was thinking it was hidden and Rosanna saw him hide it and she took it and, I was even pulling Lucy into it. It's a simple explanation. I like that it's simple, which made it all the harder to figure out. Okay, so I wonder what else we've got to discover. Oh, well, anyway, this was the story that Godfrey gave to Mr. Lurker, whether it was true or not. Lurker believed this story. I saw the main essentials based on the ground that Mr. Godfrey Ablewhite is too great of a fool to have invented it. And Bruff and Cuff agree with Lurker, considering this test of the truth of the story to be a perfectly reliable one. Okay, so Lurker said he would give Godfrey some of 2,000 pounds on the condition that the Moonstone would be deposited with him as a pledge. And if at the expiration of 1 year from that date, Godfrey paid 3,000 pounds to Mr. Lurker, he was to receive back the diamond as a pledge redeemed. Failed to produce the money at the expiration, the Moonstone was to be considered as forfeited to Mr. Lurker. That's a hell of an interest rate. Oh, okay, and Godfrey refused those terms. So Lurker gave him back the diamond and wished him good night. Oh, so when Godfrey met with Lurker, it was the 23rd. He had to come up with the 300 pounds by the following day. And when Godfrey asked Lurker if he would keep everything between them, when he initially turned down the offer, Lurker's like, well, if we were in business together, then he would keep that information confidential. But seeing as there's no deal, there's really no reason for him to withhold that information if it were to become useful for him to share it. So Godfrey found himself stuck between a rock and a hard place. He had to take the offer, which gave him a year to come up with the 3,000 pounds. And then at the end of the year, his plan was to take the diamond to Amsterdam, have it broken up, and not have any more money troubles. Oh, and apparently, thanks to the lady in the villa, that was another reason why Godfrey backed out of the wedding, because she heard that Godfrey was gonna get married, and she was none too pleased. So she felt the utmost contempt for Godfrey. It would be silent contempt if he made a handsome provision for her. Otherwise, it would be contempt with the tongue. So she would blab everything and ruin him again. So now Godfrey had to come up with the £20,000 for the trust to be paid. He has to come up with the £3,000 to get the yellow diamond back. And he's got to buy off the lady in the villa, basically. And he was in quite the pickle. So he decided he couldn't marry. He just couldn't under all of those circumstances. So they're thinking when he got that £5,000 before from one of his admirers when he went abroad, saying that he went to Amsterdam to make all the necessary arrangements for having the diamond cut when he came back in disguise. Okay, so Cuff is saying that before he closes his report, that there is a chance in laying hands on the Indians and recovering the Moonstone yet. They are now, every reason to believe, on their passage to Bombay in an East Indiaman, and there is a footnote for that. And East Indiaman is a large ship plying a regular route from English to Indian ports via the Cape of Good Hope. He does say that the ship will touch no other port on her way, and the authorities at Bombay were already communicated with by letter overland, and they will board the vessel the moment she enters harbor. So there is a chance to catch the Indians, make them face the consequences of killing Godfrey, and possibly for them to recover the Moonstone. Oh no! I wasn't expecting this. Now September of 1849. So Mr. Candy is writing to Mr. Franklin of sad news, and he's returning the letter to Ezra Jennings unopened because he had died in his arms at sunrise on Wednesday last. And Ezra didn't want Franklin to be told that he was dying. He didn't want him to be distressed. He said he was indebted to Mr. Franklin for having seen some happy days. That makes me so sad. That's cool. Before he did pass, he had Candy grab his journal, and he tore out the pages one by one relating to the time when he and Franklin were working together, and he wanted those passed on to Franklin. So if he ever had an interest in looking back, he could. It's just, I'm surprised at how much this is affecting me. He had the rest of his journal and his papers and everything sealed up, and he was buried with them. That's what he wanted. And Mr. Candy carried that out. And he wanted his grave to be forgotten. It's so sad. And we also learned during that letter that Miss Rachel and Mr. Franklin are to be married next month. So they're going to get married in October. We get to hear from Betteredge again. I hope this is for their wedding. After that sad chapter with Ezra, be nice to see something of a happier note. Yep, he doesn't care about the diamond. He calls it an unlucky jewel. He is here to tell us about Miss Rachel and Mr. Franklin's marriage. Of course, he's referring to Robinson Crusoe again. I'm going to have to read that book. He's referring to considered his new engagement, that I had a wife and one child born. So Betteredge is prophesizing that Rachel and Mr. Franklin will have a child. They'll have a baby soon. And of course, we can't question the wisdom of Robinson Crusoe. And when he left his bookmark in that spot, he wouldn't disturb it. Not until the present month, November 1850, when Mr. Franklin came into his room in high good spirits and said, Betteredge, I have got some news for you. Something is going to happen in the house before we are many months older. So Franklin was saying, how did you know? I had just learned 5 minutes ago. Because Betteredge immediately went to congratulate him. And here was a chance of reading that domestic bit about the child, which I had marked on the day of Mr. Franklin's marriage. I read those miraculous words with an emphasis which did them justice, and then I looked him severely in the face. Now, sir, do you believe in Robinson Crusoe? Betteredge and Mr. Franklin says with equal solemnity, I am convinced at last. I love that. The ending is making me so happy. I'm so surprised. So it looks like this is just outlining how Cuff knew to send word on to Bombay to alert them to be on the lookout for the 3 Indians in the Moonstone. Just giving us the background information. According to this statement from the captain, it looks like they got away. So they were bound for Bombay on the ship, and the latter part of the voyage, they had the misfortune to be becalmed for 3 days and nights off the coast of India. And whenever that happens, the captain tends to relax the rules on board. Some smaller ships were lowered, and it looks like the 3 Indians got on one and managed to make it to shore, thus escaping. It was discovered the next day that one of the little boats was missing, and the Indians were missing as well. So it looks like they managed to scamper off with the Moonstone. But we have word from Mr. Murthwaite in a letter to Mr. Bruff, because Murthwaite was out traveling along, and he was just having a little adventure like he likes to do. But all of a sudden he started noticing that he was running into more people, just a couple here and there, and by the 3rd day the throng had swollen to thousands, all slowly converging to one point, the city of Somnath. But it seems like it's a pilgrimage. And he learned that the multitude was on its way to a great religious ceremony. Ceremony was in honor of the god of the moon and was to be held at night. So the Moonstone was returned back where it belongs, among the Indian people, back as part of the sacred temple, and a perfect ending for it. Despite all of my frustrations with this book, I really enjoyed it, especially the ending. I was surprised that I found myself getting a little emotional over Ezra's passing that letter, and Betteredge's excitement over Miss Rachel and Franklin getting married and starting their family. It got me a little, which I was really surprised by. But a lot of this felt like driving through traffic. I felt like I was rushing to wait at a red light. So much, it was just like I wanted to know so badly what was going on with the Moonstone and how it got from A to B, and even where B was. It was just, which is the signs of a good mystery. It's just completely different format from what I'm accustomed to. And I liked that change, even if I was frustrated a lot of the time. But granted, I have had a lot going on. And as much as I love doing this and sharing this book with y'all, it was a big project doing these videos, because I end up with so much footage. It's normally whenever we do our buddy reads, I have maybe 2 hours of footage to go through. I'm ending up with like 4 hours worth. And I don't know what that is. I don't know what happened to me this go round. But thank you for everybody who stuck with me. Did you end up loving it as much as I did in the end? I don't know that I'll ever sit down and read the physical version of it, but I really want to get my hands on an audio copy of it, because I could definitely see myself listening to this during like winter when I'm working on my diamond painting, because this is exactly the type of book I love for my audiobooks. I like the more verbose classics. I find it calming, and you can get caught up in the beauty of the language itself. It's not trying to be flowery or anything. It's just the manner in which they wrote. It's just so different from now that I love hearing my classics out loud. So I know this is going on my audio wish list. Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, Nick, for making sure I finally read The Moonstone that has been sitting on my shelf for God knows how many years. I can't wait to hear what y'all think of the conclusion and to find out if you ultimately decided if it was a good book or not. I would say, based on my reading experience, and I'm not just going to go with the high of finally having all the answers, I'm going to give this a 3. Because it did drag quite a bit for me at times, and I did find it frustrating. And now that I think about it, I don't know, was there a purpose for Mrs. Clack's narrative? Because looking back, I don't see how that clicked into place at all. I don't know, was that just filler? I can't think of any significant plot points that happened during that portion of the book. So there was something I missed, which very well may have been. Let me know. One last thing. I have no idea at this point if we'll do a Betty read in June. Just want to lay all the cards on the table. I have been feeling very overwhelmed, and I think borderline burnt out. So I'm going to kind of dial it back for a little bit. I've got a lot I need to take care of. Household. I got to get my house in order, and we're going to be doing some remodeling hopefully very soon. I'm still looking for contractors and hope to have my house under construction soon. So I'm going to kind of play things by ear right now, and I don't want to commit to anything because I don't want to have missed deadlines. And so once I get a handle on things, have a little bit of a breather, then we'll go from there and decide what we're going to do as far as a Betty read for June. So I will keep you posted. We will definitely do another Betty read. I just don't know how quickly it will be. In the meantime, I'm going to play Just Spin It. So that'll be the next video coming up if all goes according to plan. And it should be out day after tomorrow, if not the day after that. And I will be playing The Sims again. And then we'll go from there, see how everything plays out for the first month of summer. I hope to see you then, and have a great one.